fourth time's a charm tonight. So we'll see if the internet lasts for us right now. Seems to be something happening in the air. But to go back to what my question was, as we talk about redefining strength, what were you taught as a child about what it meant to be a man, and how did that influence you as you grew older?
So I'm going to say that obviously throughout the years your ideas of being a man and what it is to be a man change. But I mean, there's always, from a young age, you have to be this tough person, not showing much emotion, very strong about what you're doing, taking care of things, taking care of your family, take care of business, and yeah, it was never. It was always just, you got to be the rock. You have to be solid. You have to be consistent. You have to go, meet these expectations. There wasn't a whole lot of room for vulnerability.
Yeah.
There wasn't a whole lot of rooms to be weak. You had to be strong. You had to persevere through it all. You have to make sure that, you get up the next day and you do what you need to do to get through the day. And yeah, as you go through things and you start to realize, that maybe that piece that we've been taught, and this by no means is anybody's fault. I think that a lot of men go through the same thing, where this is how everybody's kind of been brought up, and it just has been this way. But does it have to be this way? No. I do see a lot of changes in the world and in the acceptance of vulnerability, especially with men, in the last 10, 15 years. But I still think there's a stigma. There's still bits and pieces that people hold on to or use or whatever. You're a man, get over it. Those type of things. Yeah, but for me, for sure, things have changed. I mean, that's what I'm saying. As you get older, what it means to be a man and how you can be vulnerable. And these are some of the most powerful things, is showing that vulnerability, especially to, I think virtually anybody. But especially to the ones that you love. Show them, that you're not. Show them that you have these weaknesses. Let them help you.
So what would you say then? Because I know even when you and I first started dating, there were times of vulnerability.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of times where you were coming off as like a very strong person, very always have it together. I don't see you're struggling. I don't see that you've got emotions, anything other than anger.
Yeah.
And it's like there's such a depth that men carry within them with sensitivity. But what helped you to start moving into that more vulnerable spot? Because it's one thing to say, okay, just be vulnerable, but if you've been taught your entire life to keep it all in here, what steps can someone take to actually step into vulnerability?
So you bring up a great point, and I think this is some things that are overlooked. And when men are being vulnerable, sometimes it does come out as anger. For a lot of men, it comes out as anger, and it's a lot of like surface. There's always something deeper. Men always get accused of not being very emotional and very vulnerable. We are deep. We are very deep people. We are very deep beings, but we have this shield.
Yeah.
And so when we feel attacked, of course, we go into that fight mode where it's like, no, I'm going to defend this, with not really using our hearts. Mm-hmm. We're still using our, that fight response. So the way that you can be, men have to search it out for them within themselves. You have to start looking at, is this true? Is all of this that has been taught to me real? Is it accurate. These are things that men or people, we've told people over time, but then you start to realize like some of this stuff doesn't make any sense, or it just doesn't add up, or it doesn't fit, or you know, you and your partner are constantly doing this. Well, then you just got to start digging a little deeper into why is that, and that journey starts with the person. That journey with me, it started with me, right? Like I need to look into how am I contributing to this, or what are my things that I'm vulnerable about, or that I feel emotionally driven by. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, the first step is to cut out all the bullshit. You don't have to, I'm not saying go around crying and being vulnerable to everybody, but cut out the bullshit and know yourself. And then know yourself some more and keep digging. And then you're ready to go out into the world or talk to your partner and go from there.
Yeah. And I just want to circle back to the men displaying anger as kind of that emotion, because it seems to be the kind of number one go-to emotion for most men, or it's the thing that's most witnessed in men. So because I know that in itself brings up such a trigger in women, because they're looking for that safety. And from my experience as a woman, from other women that I know, it's like if we come to a man with, you know, a problem in a relationship or whatever, and we go, I'm feeling this way, and then he gets angry, then she shrinks back. Yeah. Right. And now you've got this kind of angry person, you've got this sad person over here, and there's so much kind of fragility that's happening there. And I don't really know what my question is on that, other than just kind of like the observation of it. It really just doesn't work.
Right, but it's so at some point that man that is reacting with anger, you're getting too close to the problem. You're getting close to that vulnerability. Okay. You're getting close to that his emotions. Yeah. And you can't do that. You know, that's what we've been built on is no. Yeah. This is my heart. You're not like, you can have my heart, but you can't have my heart. Yeah. You know?
It's so interesting because it's so devastating to so many relationships for that anger to come out, and then it ultimately, you know, it's destroying the man.
Well, that's where the challenge is for the man to know himself. Yeah. Because then you start to see, okay, it's not you that, this argument's not about you. This argument is, the fact that I'm not letting you in is not because of you, it's because of me.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's such a good point for women to hear, is it's not about us, essentially. It's, and it's true in both ways. It's not a
finger-pointing exercise, but it is, you know, this is how we respond, and we respond this way because we don't spend enough time dealing with our emotions, dealing with the pain or whatever. We put it into a box, we lock it away, and we'll deal with it another day because this is what we've been programmed to do. But, you know, like I said, you're starting to see that program being rewritten now, where it's more acceptable. You can be basically whatever you want to be, but it is still something that I think that we need to continue to focus on as a group, as a community.
Yeah. Well, I find it so interesting too, because we do have so many more people that are talking about emotions, and we're talking about vulnerability. We're talking about, you know, healing our relationship dynamics. But what I'm finding is there's still a lot of, I'm going to say, pressure that's being placed on men and how they need to be showing up in relationships that a lot of men just seem to be incapable of doing right now.
Yeah, well, I think it is hard. There's not a lot of avenues for men. Well, men go out, they'll have drinks with their friends, right? They'll talk about their shit, and there's stuff that comes out, but do they get to these big emotional experiences? Every once in a while, but not all the time. And some of that is face value stuff as well, right? It's not like you're getting into these deep, real conversations. Like I said, does it happen sometimes? Yes, but not all the time. Yeah. So there's that anger piece, and that's what it still needs some massaging. It needs men to realize this, and to do it in here before you take it somewhere else.
Yeah. And I mean, I find a lot of what you're saying, I'm like, I could totally apply all of this to women too, right? There's a lot of women who are angry now. There's a lot of women who need to go within that are looking at the men and then throwing blame on the men, but it gets to be an inside job, right? And that to me is exciting because it's like, I can heal this, you know? So without really a basis of this is what, you know, a divine masculine looks like, right? As you're growing up or whatever, you're seeing other men, but they all might have kind of influences that say, I need to be a man like this. And now you're a man, but you're also tapping into your divine masculine and the divine feminine.
Yeah.
So what helped you to start, I'm going to say, exploring that and embodying more of that in your life?
So just, it was basically just looking at, doing a lot of reading, doing a lot of self-work, spending a lot of time thinking about my life.
Yeah.
And what I've done and different situations, which does bring up a lot of pain, does bring up, you know, my motto is to be better than I was yesterday. So I constantly have to do that. Like, am I being better than I was yesterday? And you start looking at all these little pieces, and it's like some of the stuff that you were taught starts to fall away because it's like, okay, I can't buy into this story anymore. This doesn't fit. It doesn't work. It probably never did work, but this is what I was told. But I don't have to believe it. And you can step out of that and say, you know what? I don't have to be this way. I can be however I want to be.
Yeah.
But I have to break those but those old patterns of this is what I was told how a man should be and what they should do and what, you know, we were talking the other day about blue and pink jobs. It's like, there's so much division even within ourselves.
Yeah.
So basically, I just started looking at these little pieces of, you know, does this fit? Does this not fit? Where can I be better? And really I had to look inside to go, okay, you need to get in touch with these things because you haven't, or you're ignoring, or you're afraid to.
Yeah. Yeah. And I almost see that as being like, it's a very, we all experience that, of that need to go within ourselves and to really find balance within ourselves with both the divine masculine and the divine feminine, to understand, how does this work within me? How do I express this in the world?
It's even those little responses, little things that you do, like you get mad because of this. Why am I getting mad because of this?
Yeah.
You know, and then kind of doing that root cause analysis on that. I got mad because, you know, whatever, the floor was dirty. Well, why am I, you know, so you just start following that back, and it's like, this doesn't really even matter. So why am I stressing out about it? And it just starts to dissipate once you stop believing in what isn't real.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So how would you say a woman in a relationship, or a partner, I guess I'll lead with that, how would you say a partner in a relationship could actually help support, even though it's not their responsibility, but help support a man in becoming more vulnerable, in opening himself up more?
So being supportive, communicating. I think we've talked about it in the last couple of weeks, but it's like, provide that container. And, you know, I'm not saying let the person become an emotional wreck and whatnot, but be supportive, being inquisitive about things. Communicate, right? Okay, if I come to you and say, hey, I'm on this self journey to realize what my vulnerabilities are, then from my partner, I need to have that support. Okay, so what does that look like? But then you need to have that conversation. This is what it looks like. This is how I need you to support me.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you go about your journey.
Yeah. Because what I've noticed again with clients and stuff is a lot of women, by the time they kind of get to this point of wanting their man to open up, be vulnerable, deepen the relationship, sometimes they're at a crossroads where the women are ready to leave or what have you. As the man starts to open up, the woman is like, I am not here to mother you. Right?
No,
and I
that's
find
what
a
I'm
lot
saying.
of men are
I'm
looking
saying
for that.
It's not about mothering, it's about support.
Yeah.
Let that guy, if the guy went and goes and has his drinks or has his smokes, let him do that. But, well, not let him, I mean, he's going to do that.
Yeah.
But know that these are the things that he is going through. I get it. Yes, men come to this emotional vulnerability way too late in life. But women also need to understand that.
No, and I think a lot of women do. I mean, we've been taught since we were young that we're going to mature faster than boys, right? And so we've always kind of made space for boys to lag behind us, but we're supposed to lead the way while also being told we can't lead, right? So it's such an interesting dichotomy because then we lead for so long and we get so exhausted, and we're like, I just need a man to lead me. I just want a man to lead me, but we can't have someone who's, very much stuck in that
when
little
men
voice.
go to lead, women don't want to be told what to do. So that's what I'm saying.
There's a difference between leading and telling what to do.
No, but, okay, it's seen in very much the same light, though. I think, to me, partners need to be supportive in a joint decision or whatever.
Yeah.
There's no one partner leads or this or whatever follows.
Yeah.
What I'm saying, from the emotional standpoint, women spend more time in their emotions, with their emotions, than men do. Men tend to, as they get older, get into more of that emotional state and more vulnerable.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, it's not about mothering, it's just about having that understanding that, okay, and encourage them, you know what? Look into yourself. What is where did this come from?
Yeah. Yeah. And I only bring that up because I have clients that have, tried to get their husbands to open up and whatnot. And then they're having to almost like clean up the emotional mess that the husband is bringing up. And so it's like he's not really holding space for himself. He's just going, this kind of outpouring of stuff, which is great. And we welcome that. And yet it shouldn't be.
No.
Do you know what I mean?
To me, that's more of like a guilt trip of, I'm going to dump all of this on you.
Yeah.
Versus I'm going to do the work.
Yeah.
If a man's going and my way of being vulnerable is just crying and saying, my life and blah, blah, blah. Well, now I'm just taking all these victim pieces and dumping them.
Yeah.
Not really looking into how that is done or what is done for me or how it's changed my mindset. So, yeah, I don't think that's acceptable to me anyway.
No, and I agree, and that's why I bring it up, because I think if there is men who are listening right now, that there's a container that you need to create for yourself, and women too, right? Like, I can't come to you and just go of all of my stuff. I have to have kind of an idea of what is it that I'm even feeling right now, so I'm not throwing blame on him or really on anybody else. It's holding that space for all those emotions. Yeah. Awesome. Alrighty. I'm trying to find. I've asked some of my questions already. All right. So, and you kind of brought this up already about saying, men will go for drinks or whatever. You guys hang out and you kind of shoot the shit with each other, so to speak, and maybe you bring up some of the tough stuff that you're dealing with or whatnot. But how do you believe men could be of better support to other men?
Be real. I mean, do this work, but be real about things. I'm not saying don't sugarcoat things. I'm not saying you have to be ignorant about things, but there's so much, so many masks that people wear that it's like, I'm at work, I'm this, da. But just don't be afraid to be vulnerable with your friends, your buddy. I mean, if they're close enough, it shouldn't matter, right? You should be revealing your truth of who you are. If there's something that's really bothering you, you know, you hear all these stories about, with men's mental health. Oh, I never knew that guy was struggling, because they wear that mask so well.
Yeah.
Right? So it is getting curious about, you know, if you know somebody that's struggling, question, hey, what's going on? How can I help? The person that's struggling, you gotta not wear the mask. Have to reach out. You have to send signs. And I know, seeing some of the mental health things that I've seen in the past, there is signs. And people sometimes don't pick up on it. Sometimes people do. But I would say best is just, as hard as it is, just be honest as you can.
Yeah.
And there's always, if it's something that's too sensitive, there's always a way to talk about something that's related to that something. So you can get some reprieve, but you're not directly like healing that piece, whatever that you're dealing with.
Yeah.
And there's no, it's another thing that's like, for men, we because we stifle our emotions, we get to a point where it's like it just builds up and builds up, and that's where there is so many mental health problems, because we don't let things go. And when we do, it's just like, then that's when people snap. And
yeah, there's a really powerful commercial, and I'm pretty sure I made you watch it, that came out a few years ago about it was like at a football game over in Europe. And I say that because here in Canada, football means something different. But it was these two men that were like strangers to each other, but they had season tickets to this football game. And the one came in, and every week he's cheering and he's happy and he's excited. And the man that was sitting beside him was just kind of like, you know, and not really involved in the game that much, wasn't really cheering or anything like that. And as the commercial goes on, you see the really excitable man really trying to include this other man in everything, celebrating with him, gave him a scarf and all of this stuff. And then it gets to the end, and the one who is always excited, he's not there anymore. And the one who is always just kind of sitting there, he's got the scarf and he's kind of looking at the empty seat beside him and going like, you know, and the one who had been so excitable, he was actually the one who was depressed. And it's kind of a gut-wrenching commercial, and I think it's a beer commercial. I'm not 100% sure. I don't remember what it's for, but I remember the importance of the message of that commercial. Like, it was really, really powerful. So yeah, there is definitely, as much as you say there is signs, sometimes people are putting on that mask so well that we don't even realize the depths in which someone is struggling. And again, I mean, there's a lot of things that you're saying that I'm going, it's men and women. I can see how this plays out for both.
Yeah.
Like, it's incredible. And I think really just giving yourself permission to talk about it. You know, there's nothing to be ashamed of, no matter what your experience has been, whatever your emotions have been.
These are part of the mistruths that we've bought into, that you have to be this way, right?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. Like, none of this, you know, what matters is this, but it doesn't really matter. So anything that you're really bugging you, and I'm speaking to men specifically on this, is like, if there's something that's really bugging you or stuff that's built up, just let it go. There's no, like, and then what? I use this quite often, is this and then what? It's like, okay, so if you tell your buddy that, you know, you're upset because whatever, you and your wife had a fight, well, then what happens? You know, just...
Yeah. And I know I said this to you the other day as we were chatting, but sometimes when you say, like, we'll just let it go, it does come off as like, oh, because it's that easy. And we all know that it's not. So when you're saying let it go, what is the process in which you go through to let it go?
So that's kind of what I'm laying out, is then what happens? So if you hold on to this emotion, that whatever it may be, versus letting it go, what happens? If you hold on to it, you get stuck in stress, you get stuck in being upset, you get depressed, you turn to alcohol, you turn to drugs, whatever the case is. So you keep that. That sounds great, right? Hold on to that. If you let it go, what? you don't have to, like, those things start to dissipate. No, I'm not saying it's going to happen like that, but
Yeah.
if you just don't take it personal, don't, let that just kind of sink in, that, what happens next? So worst case scenario, we got a man and woman are fighting or whatever, they're in a relationship, they get a divorce. Then what? We've both been through this.
Yeah.
Well, what happens next? Life happens next.
Yeah.
It's not the end. It doesn't have to be the end. You can just keep moving on. It's just a part of life. And I know it sounds like simple, and it sounds like, but it's hanging on to that.
Yeah.
Seems like so much more difficult when you think about it.
Yeah.
So you'd rather stay in stress, be upset, drink or do drugs, or, avoid this or avoid that, or just release it and go, okay, this is what I'm going to let this go. And whatever. Let's go.
And just because you've brought up divorce as being kind of the example, and I know you've gone through it, and we met, I guess, a year and a half after your divorce, 2 years after your divorce, something like that. But what was your process? Like, were you able at the beginning of the divorce to just go let it go? No.
But
Okay.
I'm a very much different person. That's what I'm saying. Over the years,
Yes.
you learn.
Yes, but because we've got people that are going through whatever they're going through, and they can't just.
So you have to hit rock bottom. No, you have.
Okay.
You have to let it go, or you have to go into it. So if you go into it and you don't let it go, you might not come back from it.
Okay.
So put that in perspective.
Yeah.
So if this is a hill that you're willing to die on, and many people have taken themselves out.
Yeah.
Because of divorce and whatnot.
Yeah.
You're either going to do it, or you're going to learn from it. You're going to hit rock bottom, and you're going to go, no, this is not what I want.
Yeah.
I want better. I deserve better. I am better. And you're going to start building, and you're going to start that journey of self.
Yeah.
Into yourself.
Because I think there's so much value. Like when you're saying let it go and don't hold on to that emotion, don't put so much emphasis on that emotion. There's so much value in it. But for those who are going through it in the moment, it's almost like, I can't hear you.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because those emotions are so raw.
You don't understand. You've never been through this. I can hear these voices ringing through. And it's like...
Yeah.
No, it is absolutely, that is the process. You know what? Allow yourself to hit rock bottom. So what? Yeah. Then what happens next? You get up and you start building, and you erase all the stuff that you did wrong, or you realize what you've done wrong, and you don't do those things again, or you do it a different way. But, I mean, which is the better narrative? Yeah. Hold on to that. Be in that pain, be in that whatever, or, as I said, just let it go. But, and know that, you know what, everybody's been through this, everybody's been through stuff, whether it's divorce, whether it's death, whether it's whatever. There's a ton of people that have been through things and are willing to help and willing to talk to people. We just, as men, feel that, no, I can't do that because I'm this. No, you don't. That's all bullshit.
Yeah. And so, because I know the topic is called Redefining Strength. So what do you think would be the most kind of strong approach for a man to essentially lead himself and lead his family? Like with this kind of redefined idea of what strength is. Because back in the day, it was like strength is like the big muscles and the big tough guy. And
be real. Talk about your emotions. Talk about what hurts your feelings. Understand yourself first and foremost. You need to understand yourself, because if you don't, you can lash out on things that aren't really relative to anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so if you don't really know yourself and you don't know your triggers and you don't know why these things upset you or why this upsets you or these situations, and something happens, that you're going to just continue that cycle.
Yeah.
But if you actually get to know yourself, understand your triggers, understand where those things come from, then you can choose at that point, oh, this used to trigger me. It's not going to trigger me because I'm the one driving this now, not this made up story that men have to be this way. I'm in control of my destiny.
Yeah.
And I'm going to make a different decision here. So, yeah, I would just say that knowing yourself is still is the number one thing. For everybody else, it is just be that support. Talk openly about these things. Talk about the struggles. Talk about your vulnerabilities. I mean, you can't just dump everything on the plate, but take it slow, ease into it. You know, everybody's different. Some people, yeah, they can just come in and go, okay, these are my 100 things that I'm vulnerable about.
Can you imagine being so logical about that?
No, but so men will do this. This is this logic piece. These are, I'll make the list. No, but let's talk.
Okay.
Let's talk about it. And let's really get into it. Not just, okay, let's make the list and the list is done, so that's all good. Now everything's better and we can go about our lives now. That's...
Okay. It's like logicalized vulnerability.
Yeah.
Okay. And I know Lynn is typing in that it is a process in that letting go. And I believe that's what you mean as well as you're talking about letting things go. It's not like you're going, dumping the entire glass of water all at once. No. It's like little bit by little bit.
No, I mean, and like, it depends what you're dealing with. The old things, new things, whatever, right? New things that come up, you can, depending on where you are with your life, you can usually transcend those fairly quickly if you've done some of the work. The older stuff, it becomes a little more difficult because there's a lot of things you can't change, but you can still see patterns that have transcended into the present, so you can start to make those adjustments as well.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, and what are my other questions? If anybody else has questions for him and you want to write them into the chat, by all means, ask more questions, because I've got some written down here, but I feel like I've asked them all, even though I wasn't going through them all.
But no, and I do think men are getting better at being vulnerable, and I think sometimes it all depends. It kind of sways. Sometimes men are way too vulnerable in the wrong situations or don't apply. I don't want to say they don't apply it in the right time or the right way, because I don't think there's really a wrong way, but how it's received and who that person's receiving it, you got to make sure that it's right. Because a vulnerable person, male or female, could come to their partner and be like, out of the blue, I'm blah, 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 blah. And the other person could be shocked or could be whatever, like non-supportive. Yeah. What are you talking about? I don't understand. So there's other work that needs to go on as well.
Yeah. And I mean, as much as this is about like asking for the man's point of view and stuff, it does seem to be both sexes.
Yeah.
Right? And different pressures are put onto men versus women, but a lot of the ways that we kind of deal with what those pressures are, definitely, I can see that there's a lot of similarities. Yeah. And I find there's so much on social media right now about saying, a man has to be this way. A man needs to be that strength in the relationship so the woman can come with this big emotional whatever. And it cringes me. It absolutely cringes me.
Both need to realize, and as much as men need to realize about divine masculine, divine feminine, and how we incorporate that, and we incorporate both, yes. Same with women. And I think that part, like, that was a revelation to me. But then I got it and it was like, okay, yeah, no, I get where those pieces come together.
Yeah.
But nobody's ever taught that, right? Nobody's ever said, oh, did you know, this is your makeup. And then you start thinking about, all of our genes and our atoms and this and that and whatever, our soul essence has to be a mix. It couldn't be just one way. It's not one.
Yeah.
You have to have that combination.
Yeah, it's like positive, negative,
Yes.
feminine, masculine, dark, light.
But we've been so focused as a society that male is male and female is female, and you guys have your blue jobs and your pink jobs and this is how you have to fit into this box, that it's like, how could that ever be realistic?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's not. And fundamentally, I think that was built that way for other reasons, but that's another talk.
Yeah. So we have Lynn writing in and asking, how can you trust to be vulnerable? How to trust to be vulnerable? Opening a can of worms here.
You have to trust to be vulnerable. I don't know, like, how can you trust to be vulnerable?
Well, I think that's, it's a two-person job in that sense. Because you could be totally trusting and show up in a relationship to go, I can be vulnerable with this person, and they don't respond in a way that you like, which unfortunately would be you placing an expectation as to how they're supposed to show up. So I think what I've done with you throughout time is, like, at first it was like, I'm going to give you this little bit of vulnerability. Yeah. See me in this little tiny piece. How do you handle that? Oh, you're pretty good with that. Okay, here's a bigger chunk. Here's a bigger chunk.
But what's the worst case scenario? How can you trust to be vulnerable? What is the worst case scenario if you're vulnerable and it's not received the way you expect it to be received? You're still being vulnerable.
So then you're still just expressing your divinity.
I'm still expressing my vulnerabilities. Yeah. I can trust that I can express that. How that is received, that's beyond my control.
Yeah.
Then I'm setting an expectation for somebody to, whatever, treat me a certain way or whatnot. But that's on me, because now I'm expecting, if I am vulnerable to you, you're going to hold me and hug me and mummy me.
Yeah.
And that may not be the case, right?
Yeah. Like, damn, no.
But
to a certain extent.
What I'm saying is, the only thing you can trust is that you can be vulnerable.
Yeah.
You can't trust you can't trust what that reception's going to look like.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think it's interesting to even really think about, like, what does it mean to be vulnerable? Because I think we probably all have a different idea of what that would look like.
Well, I think that's why I'm trying to go through this trust and vulnerability, because trust and vulnerability are two very much, like, to be vulnerable means you trust that person, right?
Yeah.
So for me to be vulnerable, I need to have that trust in you or in whatever. I have to trust in the universe. So that means I'm showing up how I'm showing up right now.
Yeah.
In my authentic, I'm not trying to, there's nobody's heart that I'm trying to win, or I'm not trying to gain anything out of this other than I'm trying to help people.
Yeah.
So that is as vulnerable, like, you just show up as you are. Show up as who you are.
Yeah. Well, and I find it interesting, like, I've been told a lot of times throughout my life, and, well, not really throughout my life, throughout my business life, that I'm so vulnerable online, and I don't feel like I am. Because there's so much that it's like I keep hidden out of view, off the screen over here, until I've found a way to be able to articulate it in words that are going to bring more healing to other people, where you get to see more of that kind of dark vulnerability of, like, these are my deepest, rawest emotions. Yeah. So there's just two different kind of sets of vulnerability that are...
Well, absolutely. I think there's different time for different vulnerabilities. Let's put it that way. Like, and then you get into the fact, oh, now you're oversharing, or you're overextending, or you're over... You know what I mean? Like, so there is definitely things, and there's time, and it all depends on what your audience and who you're being vulnerable with and why. Like...
Yeah. No, it was interesting. Last week we were walking through the park, and there was two people walking behind us, and I was eavesdropping. It was very easy to eavesdrop because they were talking quite loudly. Yeah. But the man had said that he had unfriended a person on his social media or whatever because she was too vulnerable. She shared way too much, and she overshares and everything else. And then the woman was like, "Oh, I agree," and
that's a perfect example, right? Know your audience. Like,
yeah,
is this, am I going to share the same things with you that I share with people at work? No.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, there's
yeah.
a line. But, I mean, being authentic and being vulnerable are two different things. Be authentic.
Yeah.
Be who you are.
Yeah. And I think it brings me back to a quote that I heard once, and essentially it was like, not everybody deserves your vulnerability.
Yeah.
Not everybody deserves your authenticity. And so if you know you have someone that is just going to constantly shit on your parade, I wouldn't necessarily be going to them to be vulnerable, right? Like, it's know your people that you can lean on and to share that with them, but without having that kind of expectation as to how they're supposed to hold that.
And that vulnerability also builds trust as well, right? Like, I know that from just at work and whatnot, that when there's situations that come up, and I've done this, and people have done it for me at work, where it's like, they will be like, "Hey, are you okay? I know this is going on," or I know, and vice versa, where it's like, "I know that you're struggling here. How can I help?"
Yeah.
And that just that builds that trust, and it shows just a little bit. You're not showing it to everybody. You're having that discussion off to the side or something like that. But it helps build that trust. And again, you pick your timing for that.
And I think another piece with that kind of vulnerability is like, what is your expectation in sharing that vulnerability? Are you looking for someone to hold that space for you? Are you looking for a solution? Are you looking for someone to just be like, "You know what, that really sucks"? Because sometimes we need that too.
We could do a whole other show on expectations, because it's, half of our problem being us, as in human. Everybody.
Yeah.
And we blame everybody else.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Again,
we could do a whole other show.
And maybe that will be next week's talk, is all about expectations, because they ruin everything. They truly do.
That's just a mirror, right? Like,
yeah.
So
yeah. But just bringing it back to vulnerability, like, for you to know, who can I be vulnerable with, and also what am I looking for in being vulnerability. So Lynn's saying, just to be heard. I think in who I am.
Oh, everybody wants to be heard and seen. That's the one thing. Another thing that we've talked about many times is that witnessing, right? And this is everything. I mean, we know particles behave differently when they're witnessed. We behave differently when we're witnessed.
Yeah.
But all we want to be is witnessed.
Yeah. Yeah. And I find it
heard and seen.
Yeah.
But also felt.
And I was just going to add into that, understood as well, because we can have people who are listening to us, but if they're not comprehending what we're saying, if they don't understand what we're saying, we can still feel unheard, even though they just held that space and allowed us to be vulnerable. If they're like, going, "Oh, I see what the problem is," and they're way out in left field, it makes it that much more difficult. And that's where I say, get curious, right? If you're opening up to someone and you're sharing with them and maybe they're kind of missing the mark on what they're understanding, then say, like, what part aren't you understanding? Or to look at what ways aren't they understanding what it is you're trying to say. And you might have to find new ways to express it, because again, everybody has kind of different meanings behind different words, and the intention behind it, even how we say it, it all starts to mean something different.
Yeah, and especially when it comes to men, we don't spend a lot of time here, right? We spend a lot of time in logic. So emotions, it takes us a little time. We'll get there. It just takes us a little longer.
Well, and it was scientifically proven that there's like a 5-minute timer. So essentially a woman's brain, she's got all of the tabs open all of the time. So you need me to go in my emotions, they're right here. You want me to be logical, right here. Like, I've got access to it all. Where men, it's like a 5-minute timer. For me to say to you, I want to have a vulnerable conversation with emotions involved, and your brain has to like literally go, I'm going to shift over to the other side now. So it's a crazy mechanism to me.
Well, and this is, my struggle with doing, like, when I'm starting to do the compassion key and whatnot, is that shift, because I spend 10 hours a day or 12 hours a day in that mindset, and to shift that over to pull in those emotions, it's like, I need time. I need like a moment to be able to to
5 minutes according to scientific research. I don't remember who did that study, but you'll have to give it a try. But it is a very obvious difference between men and women, because we can access it so quickly, and it does take you guys time. And I think it shows up as kind of like a freeze mode, right? Like, where maybe if she's coming at you, like, I've got these big emotions and whatnot, and your brain's going, I need to get all the way over to emotions now and snap out of logic. And it looks like that kind of freeze mode of, I'm not listening at all. I'm not paying attention. Meanwhile, your brain's doing a whole shift. Yeah. Which is fascinating. Like, really, truly fascinating. Alrighty. So it's
that time already.
It's our big question time. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Time flies.
Yeah.
I just want to say, about men's mental health. Men do lock themselves up in this box, but you can free yourself from that prison. You have the key, you have the ability. You just need to let go of all the paradigms, all the crap that's been put together, the story that's been told about who you should be. You can be whoever you want, but share that with your people, share that with your partner, talk to your partner, communicate with your people. Don't lock yourself in the prison. And what happens when you free yourself is much more enlightening than staying stuck in that stress and staying whatever vices that you have. It is so much easier, and you'll learn how to breathe again.
And I will say too, like, from a female perspective, to have a man who can connect with his heart, who can be emotionally available, who creates emotional availability and safety for a woman, if you're looking to improve your sex life, that's the way to do it, guys. Like,
never thought of it that way,
but it's absolutely true, because in that vulnerability, there's such an intimacy that can start to happen.
Yeah, I guys, don't worry about that one. Why do I say that? Because then the journey becomes more focused on the guy and getting to know himself, going, I'm going to use this for this, because now this is a dopamine hit, right?
Okay.
So it's like, if I'm vulnerable, I can use this as leverage, versus
interesting. Thank you.
Going in and digging and then just being authentically vulnerable.
Okay.
Then, that to me is the message.
So us women need to keep that a big top secret then. Okay.
Put the lid on.
It's it's a truth that I've heard from so many women, right? Like, it's such a turn on for them. So yeah, we'll just keep that one a secret though. All right. Our big question for today is, what is the meaning of life to you?
Wow. What is the meaning of life? Well,
that's a big question.
It's it's an experience, right? So the meaning of life to me is really, it is, you're going to go through a lot of things, but try to take it easy and live those experiences. So the meaning of life, it's a journey. It's a journey that is meant to have pitfalls. It's meant to have celebrations. And it's like watching the longest, best, worst movie ever.
Awesome.
And at the end of the day, are you going to have, a combination of pitfalls and stuff? Yes, you are. And it's just live while you're living.
Awesome.
And the meaning of life?
Mine's kind of multifaceted, because as you were speaking, I was like, well, I think the meaning of life is for us to love one another. That would be like my number one answer. And then I'm also like, well, the meaning of life is whatever meaning you're going to give to it. And that can change from day to day, right? Like, today, life is great. It's glorious. It's joyful. This is the meaning of life. But if something horrible happens tomorrow, then life is shit and da-da-da. But ultimately, what I believe life is and why we're all here is for us to go from that separation from divine and move back to and have that remembrance of the divine while we're here on earth. And so it's like taking that love and it's taking that meaning and going, how can I bring this back into divinity, and how can I embody more of that divinity here on earth to raise the consciousness of the planet and to help the planet do whatever the planet needs to do. So
yeah, I mean, I was going to give the like the more logical, like we are but witnesses of the universe, right? And what is our job, or the meaning of life, is to absorb all of that content for the collective.
Yeah.
So the collective being the universe, being at some point we will transcend back into this universal energy. Our job in this life is to just merely witness and experience all of the things that we're doing every day, those pitfalls, those celebrations, to take that back so that it is a known thing. So the universe captures that piece, that little experience. Yeah. So all we are is we're projectors, and we're
projectors and observers, and we're creating the movie, and we're the character in the movie all at the same time.
Yeah.
And a character in everybody else's movie too. Yeah. So.
And not the same character.
Yes. Yes, that we're 1,000 different versions of ourselves depending on who's witnessing us. So it gets fun. Yeah. Anyways, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us here tonight. Thank you for your comments and your questions. And we will be back here next Sunday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, speaking about expectations.
Yeah,
so,
I think expectations is a great thing to talk about, because we set ourselves up for failure and blame everybody else.
Yeah.
We expect this to be this way, and it's really not anybody else, but we're telling them it's them. And it's something we need to get away from. It's hard, but it's doable.
All right. Have a great night, everyone. Love and blessings to you all.